You're listening to the Mind Over Finger podcast, episode number 8.
Welcome to the Mind Over Finger podcast. Discussions on mindful music making, efficient practice, and building a purposeful career. And now, your host, Dr. Renee Paul Gauthier.
Hi, everyone. Today I speak with Marc Gelfo, horn player and founder and CEO at Modacity, an awesome new practicing app that I discovered recently and just love. If you've listened to episode number 2 with Jason Heath, you might remember how enthusiastically Jason spoke about Modacity and how he also loved practicing with it. I was really intrigued because what he was describing was so cool and incorporated so many features that I would want in a practicing app if I could create one. So Jason was really great, thanks Jason, and offered to introduce me to Marc, and he and I had a super fun conversation. Marc has been combining music and technology since he was 5 years old. In college, he studied cognitive science and computer science, and after applying the knowledge he got from those degrees to practicing the French horn, he became an internationally touring symphony musician playing with the San Francisco Symphony and Philadelphia Orchestra. As I've mentioned, Marc is co-founder and CEO at Modacity, and in his words, he loves building software to help create a world where everyone makes music. I've downloaded the Modacity app and I've been using it. It's really great for organizing, focusing, and keeping track of my practice. It keeps everything I need in one place. I can set goals, make practicing playlists. It has a great Metro drone function. Yes, you heard this correctly, Metro drone. I can take notes. It's very easy to record myself. I can see statistics on my practice, and it has a really cool deliberate practice function that helps with self-analysis. It's all stuff that we know about and tools and strategies that I definitely aim to use all the time, but the app makes it so easy, there's no excuse to skip any of those good habits. I love it. In fact, I love it so much that I'm challenging myself and you guys to a month of mindful practice using Modacity. So stay tuned after the interview for all the details on that. Today, Marc and I talk about all things mindful practice, his approach to mindful music making, and we discuss some of the features of Modacity. If you want to know even more about Marc, I strongly recommend you download episode 515 of the Contrabass Conversation podcast and listen to Marc's conversation with Jason Heath. It's a great episode, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes for you guys. And I'll also put a link to a blog entry Jason wrote about Modacity and a link to a YouTube video he made about how he uses the app. All right, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Marc Gelfo and that you walk away as inspired as I did after speaking with him. Let's go to the show. Hi, Marc. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I heard about you from Jason Heath, who was speaking so enthusiastically about the amazing app that you created on the show a few weeks ago. I have since downloaded the app. I read about you, and I am totally fascinated. First of all, because I feel like we both share a very similar view on our approach to practicing, but also because I feel like you've created something that is, in my opinion, a very important tool for musicians. And I would really love to talk to you about both today. On your Facebook page, the description says, Marc Gelfo, practice living music, effective tips for holistic artistry, drawing on cognitive science, movement arts, nutrition, wellness, and mindfulness. Living music. I love that. And it really is at the core of the mission behind this podcast and my blog and the work I do with my students and myself. So, Marc, I would love to discuss practicing and talk about the app, Modacity, in a few minutes. And before we dive into this, I would love to hear about your musical journey and your career in your own words. So if you don't mind, can you please tell us a little bit about you, how you got to where you are, and how's your path has unfolded?
Sure. Thank you for that intro. It's great to hear it from somebody else these ideas, and the idea that we can live music and that that's a practice is so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Even this conversation that we're having is a form of music making. And even for the people listening, language is processed in many of the same areas of the brain that music is. So I love this idea that we can live musically and practice musically. And it started for me in the womb. I was a drummer, kicker boy, and inside my mom, she said I was constantly pounding rhythms and trying to get out. She thought something was going to happen here. And I was a very active kid and discovered my grandmother's organ around the age of 5. And I think my family helped me pick out a melody, take me out to the ball game. And so I started piano lessons, very traditional Western pedagogy piano lessons. I think I probably got hit on the hands when I played a wrong note and never even knew the possibility of improvisation until maybe my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how I found improvisation, but nobody had even mentioned it to me. And I started coding when I was 8, which is fairly young. And all throughout high school and middle school, I was doing science stuff and doing music at the same time. I played cello, violin, clarinet, and eventually landed on the horn, which has remained one of the primary challenges and sources of joy in my life since. So I was playing horn. I was having a great time in high school band, and decided that I loved music enough to give my life to it, and promptly applied to 5 music schools and didn't get into any of them. It was kind of a shock. And I thought, oh, well, what am I going to do now? And I'd gotten computer science scholarship offers from basically all 5 of the sister schools of the music schools I applied to. Like Eastman, for example, University of Rochester sent me a scholarship offer. Cincinnati School of Music didn't accept me, but they sent me a scholarship offer for computer science. Northwestern didn't accept me. They sent me a scholarship offer for computer science. And so I thought the path was fairly clear. I headed up to Northwestern and started computer science. And within year 1, I had been studying Chinese and very fascinated in language acquisition and how hard Chinese was. And I discovered this thing called cognitive science, the study of how we think, how we process information, what is consciousness, what is mind, and how can we research it in a way that actually creates positive impact in the way we live our lives. So applied cognitive science became my passion throughout that undergrad. And I was thinking about how can I learn Chinese a little bit faster? How can I shave some time off of my character writing? And came to realize that the reason I hadn't really excelled in my auditions or musical career to date was because I hadn't been practicing very well. After that, I was still extremely passionate about music, ended up going to Indiana, starting a second undergrad in horn and audio engineering. And within a couple of years, I won an audition, and I was living in Hong Kong, playing in the Hong Kong Philharmonic, surrounded by very interesting new culture. Hong Kong, of course, is a westernized place, but I had enough Chinese to experience the culture from that angle, and I started learning Wing Chun Kung Fu, which I think is similar to Alexander technique. It's like Chinese Alexander technique, the Wing Chun. It was invented by a woman who was looking at the leverage of the body and how we can create great power with very little force, very little forcing. It's all about relaxation, mindfulness, awareness. And that plus my meditation practice, which had been key to winning auditions, convinced me to continue diving deeper into my passion for learning, practice, and life well lived. And all of those elements you mentioned before, nutrition, body, movement, somatic awareness, emotional intelligence, it all comes together in the practice of music, the art and the science of music. So that's what my career is all about, and I'm happy to share today whatever I can.
Wow. Talk about versatility. This is so incredible. And we can definitely see that you do have this passion for learning. I really love how holistic the approach is. I mean, you mentioned neuroscience and deliberate practice technique and martial arts and spirituality. I think that it's truly a unique approach. And I want to hear more about this in your bio, and you mentioned it a little bit earlier that your scientific focus is on human learning. And so often when we practice an instrument, we focus on the doing part. We play, we repeat mindlessly, and then great, we think that things will magically get better and if we just play them over and over enough time. And we forget that really taking the time to understand how we are learning is so crucial. And that's where the difference is between successful musicians and others. I love that you call yourself a neuro-symphonic French horn player. This is that's a great term. Can you unwrap this a little bit for us?
Neuro-symphonic, yeah, that was a fun one. It's really all about honoring what modern science knows about how our brains contribute to our experience. A major part of that is the fact that our reality is not outside in. We're not just perceivers of reality. You don't just, there's not like I have a piano in front of me, okay, where we're talking right now. And there's, we tend to think, okay, there's some light waves bouncing off this thing. And so I'm seeing a piano. But actually the fact that I think there's a piano in front of me is constructed from my understanding of what the visible boundaries are, the colors, like my knowledge about what this thing is and that I bought it. And it gets just deeper than that when you look at relationships and meaning and identity. We create our reality. And neuro-symphonic honors our creative capacity while speaking to my love for the symphonic tradition, which in my opinion is a paragon of excellence in musicianship, in teamwork, in community. The symphony is a model for society, in some ways an outdated model, in other ways a really beautiful ideal to explore. So it's kind of the merging of the modern and the traditional.
That's amazing. I really do hope that we meet in person one day, because I would definitely love to continue this conversation. In trying to get to know you a little bit better, I listened to the contrabass conversation episode with Jason Heath. It was really fascinating and interesting. And for the listener, it's episode 515, and I'll put a link in the show notes. But in the episode, you talk about how you were able to be sometimes more successful than horn players in your studio, even though you were not a music major, and because of the way you practiced, And I feel like unlike most musicians who only, quote unquote, study music in college, you majored in cognitive science and computer science, as you said earlier. And I feel like this intellectual and scientific approach is really the key to unlocking so many problems we face on the instrument. So can you please speak to that a little bit? How do you practice now, Marc, that you have all of this knowledge? What is efficient practice for you?
I would love to talk about that, but I absolutely need to sidebar the conversation and talk about success for a minute. Because when you say like that I experienced more success than some of my studio mates, in one way that's true. And in another way, it begs the question, what is success? Because each and every one of us has successfully lived our path, our individual life paths with music. More successfully, for example, say I had a studio mate named Fred. Fred has been way more successful at living a Fred life than I have. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And success in music school was defined with mind-boggling narrowness. And I just bought into it. I never even questioned it. And I really want to encourage listeners to think about what success can be for them, because, yeah, it meant winning a job. And so I applied myself in a applied my scientific thinking that we're going to get into in a minute, applied those processes to accelerate my development and be more efficient to win a job. But I hadn't even realized, for example, that there was the possibility of creating my own musical career and finding product market fit by doing small experiments with an audience and iterating on my musical offering based on what was most authentic to me, rather than trying to bend myself to become a successful symphonic player.
Absolutely. And I love that we're living in a time where I feel things are changing and we are allowed to explore more avenues that maybe we were more limited to in the past. But thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, that's the invitation to consider success. And then the question is, well, yeah, I know where I want to go. How do I get there? And science, yeah, the cognitive science has a huge, I would say that science offers a lot of research and objectively validated approaches to that. And so do wisdom traditions, and so does meditation and mindfulness. And there's a increasing synergy or overlap between them. For example, the reticular activating system is a part of our brain that filters out reality based on a conscious thought. So if I think to myself, red, 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 oh, red, red, red. Okay, even just saying that, I'm finding more and more red in my environment. At first, I was looking at this keyboard, no red, and then, oh, I found a red light, and then a red a cable, and then I found a red notebook, and now I'm going to switch it to green, 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 and I'm finding more and more green in my environment as I say that word. And the same is true for things that I'm grateful for, things that I'm grateful for, things that I'm grateful for, things that I'm grateful for. Oh, wow, I just called in a whole bunch of gratitude. And what you focus on grows in your awareness and in your reality. And science is proving that, and wisdom traditions have preached that for thousands of years. So that's one example of how you get what you want, is positive focus. A lot of people say, I don't want to miss this note. I can't miss this note. And that tense negativity is a very ineffective strategy. If we're just going to look at it and evaluate it, it's a strategy, but it's not an effective strategy. A much more effective strategy would be, I want to get this note. I want to get this note. This is what it sounds like. This is what it's going to feel like. This is why I want to get the note. This is how much I'm going to love it when I nail this note. Can you feel the difference even in your body as I evaluate those two strategies?
Absolutely. It's a completely different paradigm.
Yeah. So as far as practicing, I think a relentless focus on what you want, which of course is informed by discovering sometimes what you don't want, and then and then refining your concepts, staying organized, making sure that you repeat learning stimuli at an appropriate pace. So I could probably cram the entire Bach cello suite number 6 in a single day onto the horn and spend 5 hours practicing it. I'd make some progress. But if I didn't revisit it for another 4 weeks, it would be a really wasted 5 hours of practice. Whereas if I did 5 hours distributed over 5 days, I'd be much more likely to walk away with some long-term learning and improvement.
I so agree with that. The analogy I use sometimes with students is the one about brushing your teeth. Well, you can't brush your teeth for an hour on Sunday and then forget about it for the rest of the week. You have to do it every day.
Yeah, that's the idea. And managing all of that, to me, was really annoying, especially as a creative, high energy musician who has 1,000 ideas per day. There's like 1,000 things I could practice at any given moment, and deciding which one to do and how long to do it for and when I'm going to do this and when I'm going to do that was an overwhelming task, especially because I just wanted to focus entirely on performing. I know that analyzing is one of the things that gets in the way of performing well. So we don't want our analytical mental circuitry to be very active during the act of performing. And if you're trying to manage your own practice session, and really put 100% of your heart and soul into performing a passage, then it's hard unless something else is managing the time and focus and scheduling element to really, really pour yourself into the music. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to create Modacity.
That's a perfect segue. Please tell us about it. I started exploring it a little bit and I am totally fascinated. And I feel like it encompasses so many tools that are helpful for all the musicians that, you can carry around in your pocket like this. Can you talk to us about this a little bit? How it came about and what does it do?
hmm It came about when I first started at Indiana and I was fresh out of computer science. And I had a practice journal for the first time in my life. I was so proud. I got some little Moleskine journal from the bookstore, and day one, I wrote the date and I wrote the time and I wrote what I was practicing. And okay, 15 minutes later, I wrote the time and I wrote what I was practicing. And it was pretty simple now that I think about it. But it was a staple of my practice life. And I thought, what if I could just do this on a computer and it could record the time for me and track my time and help me manage my learning? And I wanted a tuner and a metronome and recording tools to organize my recordings all in one place. And that was almost 20 years ago. I don't want to date myself, but it was a while ago. And I've been thinking of it ever since. When I was taking auditions, I would write code to generate audition rounds automatically, or to make sure that I was hitting each audition excerpt with enough regularity. And all of that helped, but I felt like there was a lack in the world of a really comprehensive, systematic application to manage music practice. And that's where Modacity came in. I started building it last year. November 2017 is when the company got off the ground. We launched in March 2018. And it's starting to get to the point where it's rich enough in features that people are really falling in love with the app. And I just met with a flute player here in the SF Bay Area, a pro flute player, and she said that she had done Peleas and Melisande, this beautiful Fauré piece, and that she had practiced the flute solos in Modacity, and that afterwards 3 colleagues came up and said that she had made them cry during the performance. I was really touched to hear that. And I think anybody who plays professionally knows that that's a very rare compliment in the orchestra world. It's a nice one to receive.
Oh, for sure. So talk to us about the technicalities. What does Modacity do?
Well, first it gets you organized. So on day one of Modacity, you're going to type in the things that you're practicing, whether it's etudes, exercises, pieces of music that you're working on, and then other practices. Meditation is a practice for me. Visualization, breathing, those are all practices. Even setting up my workspace is a practice that I track on Modacity, tuning my horn. And so you'll enter in the practices and then you create playlists. My Monday playlist, for example, is physical ease. My Tuesday playlist is articulation and rhythm. So I have various exercises, warm-ups that I put on each day's playlist. And then I just hit play and start my practice session. Then you can budget your time using countdown timers, or it just tracks all your time for you. And then it gets into the real fun, which is actually practicing with the app. There's a self-recorder that it makes it very efficient to record yourself, play back. And that feedback loop is one of the core tenets of learning. Everybody knows that you need feedback to learn, but the pacing of that feedback with self-recording is something that has been quite slow traditionally. Yeah, okay, I'll record myself at my recital and I'll listen back and reflect that there's a whole host of things that I could have improved. And then I'll work on those things for 6 months and have another recital and then record myself and listen. It's incredibly inefficient. You should be recording yourself every 5 minutes, probably at least. I listen back like every 1 to 2 minutes, generally speaking, unless I'm playing a longer passage. And that rapid feedback loop where I can listen at half speed, I can listen at double speed, Um, I can scroll the waveform and really look at what's going on, helps me identify what I want to improve. And then there's an improve button very conveniently in Modacity where I just press the improve button, choose the area of improvement that I want to make, for example, articulation. And then the app suggests some strategies to make those improvements. And you can use those strategies. Like an example of a strategy for improving articulation would be on brass would be to sing the articulation that you want. Ta 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 ta, or da 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 da, or ta 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 ta, and then to bring it back to the instrument. So you test that strategy, record yourself testing it, and if it really works, then you say yes, and then it saves it for you, and it's right there in your history and your log. And it's a very positive and streamlined way to make focused, high priority improvements in playing. Then I retain them using the note taking feature. I just take notes, slap them onto practice items, and say, oh yeah, remember to sing the articulation in your head, or remember to do this, remember to do that, remember to feel the space behind you, is a strategy that I've been playing with, really being aware of the physical space behind me when I'm playing. And that's the basics of it. You hit the finish practice button, get a little thumbs up, and that's a practice session well spent.
I love that. I feel that it almost takes a ritualistic aspect to it. I talk a lot to the students about priming, and I feel like that is really a good tool to help with that. I know that for me in my life, it's very important. And priming might be something that takes 30 seconds, such as maybe just establishing goals for the day. But if I'm preparing for an audition, priming might take an hour. It might be an hour in the practice room before I play a note if I really take the time to, do a little bit of yoga, goal setting, planning the practice, maybe do some visualization, all of that. And this, it's the term you use, the strategizing is so important. And a lot of times, I don't want to date myself either, but, there's so many tools I've accumulated throughout the years, definitely the notebook, things such as recording myself. And sometimes for students, it might take years to develop all of these. And I feel like you've put all of this in an app, very well organized. You can carry it with you everywhere. And as a professional who spends a lot of time in traffic, I think it's really great that I can have this with me at all times. If you get to a gig early and you have everything that you need with you right there, taking the recording, so useful. And then for students who carry so much stuff and they show up at lessons and they forgot their practice book, but no one forgets their phone. So I really love that. I feel like it, addresses so many issues we have with making sure that we are staying on track, we're staying focused, helping us set goals, helping us organize everything. And the more I'm, using the app, the more I love it. And did I hear correctly that you also have an option for support?
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. Just right there in the app, you can chat with us. Anybody who needs a little practice tip or just feeling frustrated, we're always there for you. And that's really fun. That's one of the reasons that a lot of people say that they've, purchased a lifetime subscription, is they love the interactions with the team.
It's truly awesome. Truly awesome. Mark, I feel like we would need to talk for a couple of hours, but I know you have to get going soon. I've downloaded the app and I think it's fantastic. And I can guarantee you that all my students are going to hear about it. And I know that Jason Heath, for example, has made a video on how he uses the app. I mean, the link to that in the show notes. And of course, links to the app itself. And again, maybe I need to fly to San Francisco so we can, fully nerd out on practicing for several hours.
I would love that. Yeah. I'm so glad that you are a believer in priming. That's so important. And I did an experiment over the last week where I identified 5 areas of mastery on a particular horn technique called multiphonics, when you sing and play at the same time.
Ooh, tell us about it.
Yeah. And the like 5 basic stages: singing and playing, locking in intervals, moving the top note while keeping the bottom note steady. This is a lot like double stops on a string instrument, but you're doing it with your voice and your lips on a horn. And I only practiced these 5 areas for like 1 minute per day. I just had a timer in my playlist, my multiphonics mastery playlist, 1 minute each, and just go through it, 5 minutes total. But this idea of revisiting it and priming it in conjunction with the notes that I took each practice session allowed me to make rapid progress on this thing. And I think that a lot of it just came from activating the circuitry, the neural network around this skill. It was very fascinating. So just glad that you're recommending that to people. And then the other thing I really quickly want to share is that just last night I was out to dinner and someone mentioned this incredible breathing video exercise. And the natural response is, yes, I can't wait to watch that. Where do you put that? You open up your phone, right? And most people will make a new note in their notes app or Evernote if they're really advanced. And they have some kind of system that probably has a 20% success rate of actually making it into their practice. But what I did was I loaded up Modacity and I added that item to a playlist. And I know that the next time I practice that playlist, it's just going to be an item on there. So it's really cool when I get little practice items from people, or I'm at a gig and I'm like, oh, Lydian scale. Wow, I need to practice that more. Okay, cool. I make a practice item for it. I schedule it for later and I know I'm going to practice it. It's a really cool way to operate.
Wow. And can I get the link for this breathing exercise from you to put in the show notes?
Yeah, sure. I'll make a note to give that to you.
And I have to say too, I feel like we're a little bit like timer soulmates, because I thought I was the only crazy person using a timer in practice. But for me, it makes it so much more fun. I set goals within the next 5 minutes. Here's what needs to get done. And I don't know, I've been using a timer for many years, and for me, it's one of my favorite practicing tools.
Yeah, I think that there's a contingent of human beings out there called the timer tribe who really likes working with timers. And there's a little dopamine spike when you finish the timer and you do your thing. It feels really good. And then there's a whole other tribe of people that really hates timers. And a couple of them we've started to hear from a couple people in Modacity, like, can you please remove that timer? I hate seeing it. I just want to relax.
Yeah, we need a timer tribe Facebook group for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I know you have another call very soon. Let me take you through a quick round of rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
So, for the people who are wondering a little bit about what it's like to live the life of a performer and entrepreneur, can you tell us a little bit about what your life looks like?
It's exciting. It's highly variable. It's extremely challenging. It used to be a lot more lonely until I realized that was kind of killing me inside. And I made it a point to have teammates and to have accountability buddies and to co-work as much as possible. So I'd advise against trying to work at home in your pajamas all alone every day, all day. I think it's just extremely exciting. It's different every day, and it requires a lot of tenacity and persistence and dedication, which are good things to have. And if you don't have it, it means you're working on the wrong thing.
Wow. You mentioned a lot of great qualities here. Are there any other skills that you think musicians studying today or, about to enter a career should acquire, in addition to, of course, learning to play their instruments?
Yeah, learning to play an instrument is not the primary skill for a commercial musician, in my opinion, because it's really easy to have it's all about marketing. It's all about commercial viability is about making money. And that's not about being the best musician that you can be. It's about being the best music business person that you can be. So having the skills for like outbound sales, inbound sales, product market fit, managing your money well, so that even if you are making money, you're not spending more of it than you make. All of that's really, really important. And of course, the artistry is part of that. there's a way to synergize it when you understand marketing and product development and business development so that you can work on your most authentic form of artistry in a way that resonates with an audience and generates a livable income. That's super possible. It's more possible than it's ever been.
So true. So good. How about a performance that stayed with you throughout the years? You that lives music.
Hmm. Oh, there's so many. The one that comes to mind immediately was in the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam. And it was a tour with San Francisco Symphony, and we were playing Mahler 1. It's a very deep piece in my heart. Mahler is one of those composers I grew up with. And I had a dear friend in the audience, and it just, when the horns stood up in the finale, and I had memorized the last page, so I didn't have the music stand. I was just like looking at Michael Tilson Thomas conducting, surrounded by this wall of sound, and Mahler's name in gold leaf on the balcony of the Concertgebouw in the back balcony. It was just like one of those incredible moments of joy and arrival and satisfaction and gratitude and wonder that this boy who thought he would never get to play in a symphony orchestra was getting to experience this moment.
Wow. I think I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, I definitely got them.
And I'm going to guess that maybe one of your favorite tool in the practice room is Modacity. But you have a favorite function on it?
Oh boy, it is my favorite tool. I hate practicing without Modacity now. Every now and then I'll pick up the horn and doodle or toot or do something, but every day that I practice now, it's with Modacity, and I practice a lot more now that I have the app because it's just so much more enjoyable. But yeah, I'd say that the deliberate practice function is something that I know every time I use it, it's radically effective. And yet, even I, the creator of this app, fail to use it as often as I should. So I'm going to publicly commit to using the deliberate practice feature a little bit more.
Sounds great. We can all, have a little accountability partnering going on here.
Mm-hmm.
How about a favorite book that you would recommend to our listeners?
Oh man, the first one that comes to mind is not always the best one that comes to mind. So I'm going to share a few. The first was Dynamic Alignment Through Imagery by Eric Franklin, which is a book that covers the entire complexity of the human body, every body system, and how you can use imagery to improve its function. For example, right now, if you just imagine that your shoulder blades on your back are like rags, like if you take a dish rag and you wipe a pair of glass and you wipe it circular, that your shoulder blades are just gliding on your back and that they're completely free. Doesn't that change your state a little bit? There's all these visualization exercises in there.
I'm pretty sure we're all trying to do this right now.
Yeah, you gotta do it. Or imagine like water flowing down your shoulders, through your elbows, through your wrists, and out your fingertips. Warm water flowing out your fingertips. It's like, oh, it's such a nice visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Another book, boy, I've read so many books. I would look at The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and he talks about using the scientific method to develop a business by treating it as an experiment to find out how to build a successful business. And it's just as valid for startups as it is for musicians.
Wow, that's really interesting. I never heard of this one. And I'll put a link in the show notes for all these books. What about a piece of advice that you've received and that you would like to pass on?
It's gonna be okay.
Love it.
It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. Mm-hmm.
That's very good. Yes. So before I really let you go, do you have a quick actionable tip that our listeners could implement today in their musical lives?
Yes. State of being is a primary fundamental for creating music. So many musicians and systems of music learning prioritize the right note at the right time, and that's really all you got to do. But it's so much more than that. And if you can get your state right, your state of being, your physical state, your emotional state, and your mental state aligned with what you'd like to perform, it's such a massive lever and it's worth doing. It's worth taking the time for. That's my tip.
That's a great tip. I hope you have a mic right there and you need to drop it big time right here. So tell us, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yeah, just visit modacity.co to download the Modacity app and get started with a little bit more fun practice. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, it's Marc, M-A-R-C, at modacity.co.
Marc, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so glad I've discovered you and your work and the Modacity app that I think I'm going to have so much fun with in the months to come. And all of this thanks to Jason Heath. So many things you said today I feel are so important for musicians to hear. And I really cannot thank you enough for taking the time to chat with me.
My pleasure. Happy practicing, everybody. And remember, those shoulder blades, keep them free.
And if you start a accountability group on the Modacity page on Facebook, I think I'm going to sign up for that.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what social features are going to work for the app. That's the next step.
We'll keep track of this. Thanks so much, Marc. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Marc Gelfo. Now, if you're interested in taking your practice to the next level, join me for a month of mindful practice. This challenge is perfect for you if you're looking to deepen your work, speed up your progress, and reach a specific goal. Join the Mind Over Finger tribe on Facebook and jump in the challenge. We are going to be there for each other for inspiration, accountability, and support. So here's how it works. And don't worry, I'm going to have all of this info in the show notes as well. First of all, hop on Facebook and join the Mind Over Finger tribe at facebook.com/groups/Mind Over Finger tribe. Secondly, think of 1 to 3 practice goals you have for the month of November. Put them in writing and share it with us on the group. It could be anything from learning a new piece to working on something you want to fix in your technique. I would be specific, don't say, I want to improve my left hand, but rather say something along the lines of, I want to improve my shifts. But don't have a closed mind and be aware that things might shift throughout the month, and you want to allow that without, of course, losing sight of your goal. The next thing you want to do is download the Modacity app from the App Store or at modacity.co. The app is free, but there's a Prime membership version with lots of great features. And guess what? Marc and the team at Modacity is offering participants of the challenge access to all the Prime membership features for free for the whole duration of the challenge. So visit modacity.co/mindful-music-upgrade for your free upgrade. Then, starting November 1st, practice every day using Modacity and share a daily practice insight or a win with us in the group and on social media using the hashtag #MindfulPracticeChallenge. And I'm going to be right there with you sharing my wins and my insight in the group and social media using the hashtag #MindfulPracticeChallenge. After the end of the challenge on December 1st, share with us in the group what you've learned and how you've progressed throughout the month. During the challenge, both Marc and I will pop in the group for some live action, talking about mindful practice, sharing some tips about Modacity, and there will also be benchmark celebration on day 10 and 20 with possibly some free swag from Modacity. In addition to this, I will randomly select from the people who stick with the challenge 2 people who will have a free 45 minutes private mindful practice consultation with me where we can look at how you work, what you're trying to accomplish, and how to strategize efficiently to get you to your goals. This is going to be tons of fun, guys. Don't forget to find Modacity on Facebook and Instagram for added inspiration as well. Next week, get ready for a really interesting conversation about mindful practice from a vocalist perspective with the mezzo-soprano Wallace Junta. There was much to learn for the instrumentalist that I am. If you have the chance, please take a minute to head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. And if you think of someone who might find value and benefit from the Mindful Practice Challenge, please share it with them. Or if you're a teacher, maybe share it with your students. Again, thank you. I will see you in the tribe, and a bientôt.